and thank you everybody for joining. I'm just going to sort of set this, a little bit of a stage here, and then let all of you take over actually. So we're at ThinkAg are delighted to be having our 5th AgClinic here, where we pick specific topics, and what we try to do is have a much deeper discussion in it. So the intention here is to replicate a roundtable. When we did this in the past, it was all physical, but now you guys just have to imagine we are sitting around a round table and having a discussion. So I'm going to, request if everybody can kind of turn their videos on so we all feel like we're talking to each other. But do stay on mute and raise your hand if there's a comment or a point that you kind of want to make, so that we can, people aren't talking on top of each other here. So looking forward to having a robust discussion and getting just deeper into the topic. And as all of you know here, the topic today is talking about, how do you get inputs from production all the way down to the farmer. And we're super delighted to have Bear, and we have Rohit here with us, who we're going to request to kick stuff off as a knowledge partner, and lead some of the, bring his inputs as well into these discussions here. I think the plan that we have here is to kind of focus on 3 pieces here. One is on a lot of the e-commerce and the digital that has kind of happened, and what's that doing to input movements from factory to farm. And the second part is obviously about the logistics, and is digital playing a role there? How do we see that happening, and are there big changes that we expect happening here? And the last but not the least is, how does an input player, interact with their end customer, which in this case is a farmer, right? And is digital providing means for a seed manufacturer, tractor manufacturer to actually be talking to their end customer and engaging them with them in a much more robust manner? So I think these are sort of the 3 areas, and I think we have people here from large corporates. We have young companies, entrepreneurs here who are in all of these 3 areas as well, with a lot of digital solutions to sort of also give us their view on ground. So I'm going to request Rohit, if we could have you sort of kick off, and then Hemendra will take over to sort of get some of the key people to give sort of their views in here. Abhijit, is Rohit? Did we lose
Thanks
Rohit?
a lot. Yes, Ritu, I can hear you. Thanks a lot. Yeah. Can you hear me? Am I audible? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So thanks, Ritu, for setting up the context, and good afternoon to all the panel members and all the attendees who have joined this particular platform. About myself, first of all, connected with the industry for the last now 20 years and watching the growth happening in the industry, and I'm proud to be part of the organization Bayer with the mission of science for a better life. And it's our endeavor to support science and technology, which we believe that can bring a big transformation in agriculture. And it's my pleasure to be a part of Bayer, and also me as a part of a knowledge partner with ThinkAg, which works on bringing together the like-minded people and kind of I would say like a convergence of the disruptive technologies, and hence which would spawn to new business models for the future. So I would start by saying that the farms which were there 15, 20 years back, the farms have changed now. Yeah, the farmers have changed now. A lot of interventions are there, a lot of technology is coming into the farms, and a lot is happening around. I mean, the whole contact management architecture, which the companies were practicing, the Agri-input companies which were practicing with the farmers, was by way of going to villages and contacting the farmers. It was a kind of a very open kind of campaigns which companies used to practice. But with this, a lot of startups and all coming into the picture, and each and every startup working in their own space, they were working in bits and pieces with the different kind of technologies. Somebody working the remote sensing, somebody working with the commodity prices, somebody working with the different kind of applications which came into the picture. So now with this, what big thing has happened is that there is a shift from kind of an open campaigns to a kind of a directed campaigns, which is one-to-one contact with the growers. And I mean, this is a very positive development wherein you are giving a kind of a 360-degree approach, around the growers, and hence digital is playing a lot of role around it. So to start, when we approach the farmers, yeah. So the basic thing is that how we are giving an advice to the growers. So that is through different apps and different kind of tools by which we give them a knowledge on the pest management tools, the kind of on the related kind of an agronomic practices and all. And there is a lot happening. And I mean, but the whole thing is that the stickiness to this particular apps to one app is totally missing. I mean, there has to be some trigger which brings in stickiness onto these apps, by way of which the maybe profitability of the farms is something which would kind of act as a stickiness for the farmers to go onto it. So second level, I would say, is that when the farmers get an advice on those apps or from different applications and tools. So second level is that when getting an advice, agronomic advice from the tools and all, where do we go to buy the product? It's a traditional model available, which is retailers and distributors in agri space. But there are other ways also which are coming up. E-commerce is something which has already disrupted the whole FMCG industry, the retail industry. So similar kind of an e-commerce kind of an transformation, by way of which the farmers, I mean the companies, I mean also people are there in the panel also who would be addressing into the e-commerce part as well. That is coming up. So the whole parallelly, you must have all heard that there are talks in the government also going on this e-commerce piece, wherein they are saying how can we develop a common platform where farmers can buy the products or the different inputs which he wants. So saying so, I would say that though we are talking about digital today of the agri supplies of inputs, but I would say that it's a combination of physical and digital which is going to work. I mean, the aim is digital, but it's a step one of physical and digital which is going to work. And if we talk about today what is happening, I mean, in this covid situation, this unforeseen pandemic which has happened, so the whole distribution model, I mean, the retailers are becoming more strong. I mean, they are developing their own last mile delivery models, kind of an home delivery to the farmers. So this kind of models in nooks and corners of the countries are already spawning. I mean, this is a very positive development where we see that there is a kind of a platform available, and there are this hyper link kind of logistics which is spawning across the country. I mean, going forward, the retailers are going to be an important piece, and I mean, it would be a complete disruption. One full layer, I'm expecting that one full layer of distributors may go off. This can also happen in future. So I mean, there are steps which are being taken by the government, like you must have heard in the states, in Telangana, the Raitu Bharosa Kendras and all which are coming up. I mean, government is talking about agri-entrepreneurs. So agri-entrepreneurs is nothing but okay, local farmers or the local dealers who are coming up and joining hands on this digital platform. So this is what physical and digital which is going to work for the future. So I mean, today there are a lot of distinguished guests and attendees also attending this particular platform, and we would be listening to them as well. So what is happening into their part of the world? But I believe that technology is something which is going to change the whole landscape of agriculture, and we all are together preparing for the world that is exponential. Yeah, I mean, I'm again repeating, that's an exponential, that is non-linear and not easy to predict in terms of growth. So that's the kind of a thing which we are predicting for agriculture to happen. And it needs a lot of creative thinking and platforms like this ThinkAg, which will make it happen for the future. So that's it from my side, and looking forward for the discussions today and also be part of the discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Rohit. So Rohit, Hemendra, I'm going to hand over to you, but just a request from everybody that we really want this to be a discussion. So if we keep this to a freebie, brief comments from your side, and then we can interact and have more of a discussion, that would be great. Over to you, Hemendra.
Thanks, Ritu, and thanks, Rohit, for a wonderful start. And we are very fortunate to have representation from corporates, and I would say probably the top 10 e-commerce, agri-commerce platforms in the country. I think all of them are in the room. So it's a very rare gathering, and we should make most of it. And as Ritu said, it's not a conventional webinar. We would love to have discussions. Be frank and honest about your opinions, and that will probably trigger a lot of discussion. We also have wonderful audience with us, and I'll request all the audience to be interactive. Please keep typing your questions, suggestion, comments on the chat box so that we can also include that in our discussion. So let's begin with the corporates. We have Sanjeev Kanwar from Yara. We have Mahesh Girdhar from Deepak Fertilizers. We have Abhijit Satsangi from PI Industries. We have Mr. Keswan from Traffic, and we also have Mr. Devendra Chawla from EY. So I'll request all the corporate participants to share their views on the role of alternate channels, digital channels to reach out to farmers. I know many of you have expressed interest in working with them. Some of you are already working with them for the last few years, and would be good to learn from you what kind of experience have you had so far, and what are the areas of sort of improvement, or if we can ask, how do we improve these partnerships going forward? What would you like agri-commerce startups to do? So we'll begin with you, and of course then we'll go to all the startups in the room. If I may ask, Mr. Keswan, would you like to start the discussion?
Let me unmute and come in. Thank you, Mr. Hemendra. See, we have been pondering into how to make things work digital. And we had some successes. We had some pretty good successes. We had also had this very serious, let's say, I won't call it a failure, but very serious hindrances. See, what we normally notice when it comes to farmers and digital is, I'm only going to talk about supply into the farmer. I'm not talking from farmer supply into the markets. Let us say the input for the farmers. Let me start touching up that. See, a couple of things we realized when we were trying to work with the farmer is, one, he is happy to look at an app provided he feels there is a benefit to it. One of the things we so noticed that the advisories what we try to give farmers, they are not very keen on the advisories. This is something more and more we have been seeing, and we see many startups having a serious hiccups on the advisory area. So the first thing when we started getting in as a corporate, what we thought is, can we make something which is consumable by the farmer and he sees a benefit? I'll give you one example which we are running. See, we noticed that there are a lot of farmers rent tractors and equipment during the season. One of the problem is that they normally go to the known renters. So we created a platform called the JFarm. It's called the jfarm.com as far as the platform is concerned. And we really thought through a lot and said, should we make this a monetary platform? And then we said that it's going to be very difficult in this kind of a scenario to make it a monetary platform. So we moved it into a CSR platform. So what we have done there, because I tell you why we found it difficult, let me explain it when I talk about it. So what we are really trying to do is, see, there are close to 45 lakhs of tractors, equipments, implements, that kitty available in the country. There are close to 12 crores of farmers. At least out of that, 8 crores will be definitely looking forward for some equipment rental during the season for their operation. So we created something very similar to let us say, I mean, somebody gave me an example and said, like, you are working like a contact program. And then what we did was, we gave the app, we gave the facility to the farmer. So any renter can know there's 5 kilometers, 7 kilometers, 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers, which are the rentees there. And the rentees can know who are the renters there. And it's completely open, and they start talking to each other. We do not interfere into the commercial negotiation. The only thing we capture, everything is captured digitally. The only thing we capture is the actual work being done. When we started this, we started fully digital, and we found that 100% digital is not the working model. So we converted it. I think Rohit talked about digital, physical but digital. So we called this Phygital, and we started working on it. And we put efforts on the ground. We had call centers working. We linked up with most of the state governments. At least we have 13 state governments signed in with us today. Now, believe me, this has actually helped us. The farmers who are already invested and who are already having tractors and equipment and implements to actually rent it, and they probably made about 150 crores of physical money in the last 8 or 9 months. Now, this is every farmer, we are trying to convert them into an entrepreneur. But the biggest problem is every farmer is not an entrepreneur. And this comes out extremely well in our digital. There are some people who really utilize it extremely well. There are some people who don't. There are some people who just don't. So you're really creating, you get a segregation who are the agricultural entrepreneurs. But I think the best bet happened during that COVID. For 3 states, Tamil Nadu, Rajasthan, and part of UP, we said that for a change, we will pick up the tab, because the rentees are really not having too much of a money. And we said we will pick up a tab and we will pay the rentees directly in this 3 states. And this has been a overwhelming success, and we are able to, there are a lot of rentees coming in, taking the renters, tractors and equipments, and we have been actually making the payments to the rentees, still as a CSR. But what I noticed is, in the last 45 days, as we have ran it, we have a service close to 25, almost 60,000 farmers. And probably they have gone and done take into 3, almost 1.8 lakh acres of work has already been done. And we have been targeting basically the BPL or low or the marginal farmers for this purpose. A lot of people said it's not going to work because your payments are digital, the renters are farmers. But we noticed after putting some extra efforts, initially around 10 days in the COVID time, we found it very difficult to pass the payments through to the farmers on the rental platform or onto the digital platform, because though everybody had a KYC, etc., most of the farmers, when we looked at it, 90%, they are just defuncted. That means they are not utilized it. So we have to restart everything. But once it started, we find that there is a huge amount of pull taking place. So my belief genuinely is that we can work on digital. What we rightly said by Rohit Maini is that it will not going to be 100% digital. It is going to be a phygital model. And this COVID has actually helped farmers to learn how to change. And we also noticed that this month, the tractor sales have picked up. A lot of people ask me the same question. The tractor sales, I get a feeling is, we are seeing a lot of sales actually happening on the ground. And believe me, many of the sales are happening not by physically customers coming in, but a lot of work is happening because people call them up. There have been digital marketing going on, and there is a discussion going on. Thankfully, the farmers know what models they want, and the transaction is going on. Many of the transactions, even for finance, is becoming digital. So I think it's an interesting change of the mode. We see there is a lot of traction happening, and maybe a lot of COVID may be bad, but I think it is really going to transform and bring a lot of good things as far the farming community is concerned. Because I also believe a lot can be done actually picking up farmers' produce and selling into the market, which of course I'm sure there'll be somebody else going to talk. Thanks, Hemendra. Back to you.
Thank you, sir. Very, very important and useful insights. Yes, we remain bullish that COVID will drive many more digital payments in both selling and rental models. Can we bring in views from players who are into fertilizers? We have Mr. Mahesh Giridhar from Deepak Fertilizers. Sir, would you like to come in? You have to unmute. Mr. Girdhar, you are on mute.
Yes, I think I'm audible now.
Yes, you are.
Okay, so thank you very much for inviting, as well as hello to everybody on the dais, as well as who are for the participants. Thanks, Rohit, for a good start, and also later on some backup from the real digital experience. What I would do is that before going into specific crop nutrition fertilizer side, I would just try to bring a overall perspective. I have also worked in seeds and crop protection for last 25 years, so understand the entire input industry well. Before I get into our own experiences, let's put a retailer in the middle, because who is, as on today, is engaged in transaction with the farmers, whether it is a product as a transaction or credit as a transaction. He is also involved advisory as a transaction. Advisory part, knowledge part means any study we do, and many of my colleagues here who are sitting will understand that about 40 to 45% influence or decision making on what input to use in the crop production is influenced by the retailers. Apart from these, let's say, tangible parts of that, there is a very significant relationship aspect which works very well between the farmer and between the retailer because of the proximity. Now, what we need to think, and I'm actually coming straight into what with the positive experiences everybody has, what we need to think that we are moving a lot of this informal transaction and relationship into a formal transaction and relationship. We are formalizing the entire value chain of input advisory model, and the relationship piece is sitting on the periphery. So how do we bring in personality to the whole thing what we are doing? And where speakers have already said that it's kind of not digital, it's phygital. I fully agree that in our experience also it's not digital, it's phygital, but it can go to digital as well. But somebody would need to think into that, how to bring life to whole thing. Now at a transaction level, what we need to think that credit plays a very, very important role. If we look into in our own country, the credit to the farmers has already become an inefficient input, because the way it has been dealt with the governments through the subsidies, through the write-offs, what data tells us that 55% of the money does not come back. Farmers still want, today they are paying higher interest, but because of the whole inefficiency into the system, this is not helping anybody. So I see that a clear linkage between a product, credit and advisory together, and a model which will bring these things together can probably facilitate the adoption of right inputs from the farmers, right? Because if input goes well, output would be well. So we need to bring together the crop management input advisory as well as credit as facilitation. I understand also we are not talking today about the downstream part of the business. That also plays an equally very important role. So I would encourage that the system thinks about credit as an input. Today, there are multiple initiatives around credit through NBFCs. They are going via either FPOs or they are going via agripreneur model. One-to-one is not happening, and it's not easy, right? I'm just saying it's not easy, but somehow a system which cracks through some kind of digital coupons or the ideas where I can now talk about fertilizer business and what has been thought through right now in the fertilizer sector by, let's say, Department of Fertilizer as well. Now coming to fertilizer, that we are a a subsidized business. So a lot of bulk, let's say urea or complexes are the subsidized, where there is a benefit is transferred via the channel right now to the farmers. And future model says that the benefit will be direct transferred. And then there is a point of sales activity takes place, which becomes a barrier. What has been thought through, and which I encourage that people in this audience also think through, is something called digital wallet, right? Whereby you actually park the funds into the wallet and then utilize as input goes, and then you can also link advisory to do that together. So I would rather see that how can we find certain solutions while we discuss today as well with our own experiences. Our experience on digital till now has been mostly on the digital marketing side, which of course I agree with the speakers here. With the COVID period, there is an impetus because you can move your entire below the line activities into the digital activities, and there is a let's say fair amount of success. But there too there is a gap in technology, and there is a gap in, you can say, that digital knowledge, or you can say digital intelligence is missing. Even somebody is a literate, but digital literacy is missing still. Access is not there. I mean, we had done many webinars recently, but it takes 7-8 times calls to a farmer to get him to on the webinar. It's not that straightforward. So you definitely need ground intervention to move to digital. It will take some time, but if we address the right topics which are quite tangible, we will reach to a level where we can scale up technologies, interventions, advisory for the benefit of every farmer, because we have a huge gap, huge productivity gap. We have huge market linkage gap. And I mean, I'm talking more about input perspective. In input as well, there's a huge gap today. In any of the crop, we are not at the best of the productivity. And I think you pick up any crop, you can find opportunities. And you pick up any technology, you find opportunity. Level of adoptions are quite low, right? So there is a scope, and clearly digitalization would certainly help to move the advisory knowledge input credit faster than today.
Thank you, Mahesh. I think wonderful views and role of credit, role of advisory, digital literacy. And I will request all the startups, after the corporate section is over, to react to what you have said. I think these are very important points. We also have Sanjeev from Yara International. Sanjeev, would you like to come in?
Thank you, Hemendra. It's good to be with you guys. I'm sorry I can't switch on my video because I have an 18-year-old boy and he controls the Wi-Fi signal. So we have to live with that. And the router is in his room. So he's told me if my Netflix goes off, then your Wi-Fi goes off. So I'm controlled at the moment. I would agree with Mr. Keswan and Mahesh, what they've said about in their discussions or talks. I don't think I have anything to add on that, though. I think when it comes to digitization, the challenge is we have 140 million smallholder farmers. And as, let's say, in the real world, if I may use that term, it's very difficult to knock on each door and deliver knowledge as well as your products, whether it's seed or a ag chem or a fertilizer, to that farmer. Then second issue is because you have so many farmers, you also have a very fragmented network. Like if you look at it, we have almost about 550,000 retail counters in India who are on the DOF's POS scheme. So that's a lot of people to cover, to sell your stuff to reach the end 140 million farmers. So this adds to the challenges going forward. That is, the supply chain is so long. You are moving from plant to dealer to retailer, and then to a sub-retailer, then to the farmer. So that means that there's a lot of challenges are there in terms of physical delivery to the farmer. So what I see is the last mile connectivity with the farmer is really challenging in terms of delivering your product, in terms of delivering your input, and also I'm certain, as we see it, from what we lose every year on delivering our output back into the market. So this is where I think digitization would come in quite handy. And I think Rohit, in his opening remarks, has really hit the nail on the head by talking about the stickiness, that we have apps out there, but the farmer is not sticking to it. As Yara, I think some of you would be aware that we are also looking at digital farming. We have been active, fairly active in this space for the past 12 to 18 months, but we're not out there in the market with full josh, so as to speak. But yeah, we're just looking at it, getting our hands around it. So I think one of the key reasons for the stickiness to increase could be if, while we're developing the digital apps, we could actually create a marketplace which meets the requirements of the input and output, including financing. If we could have that kind of an ecosystem on an app or some way, that would increase the stickiness of the farmer as a customer to stay. But then you still would have the physical challenge of delivering product to the farmer, because especially when it comes to fertilizers, we deal in generally in 25 or a 50 kg bag. So that is something which means that there would be need to have an app or something by which you could aggregate the demand for that local village or a local marketplace and then deliver it in one shot to that particular geographical area. So a lot of challenges are there, but I think these are really exciting times. In the last of 60 days, 65 days of COVID, we have also adapted as a company in India, and we have really gone digital in terms of delivering knowledge to the farmers. And here we have seen that a lot of myths have been broken, where we felt that farmers would not be ready to join online. When they see value to it, they join online. A majority, we have done almost, I would say about 650, 700 farmer meetings digitally in the last 30, 40 days, and each one of these meetings has been attended by minimum of 50 to 60 farmers. And I'm just to share, we see a business better than last year. So which is that, yeah, so it brings me to a conclusion that there is something there. And then I would leave it to the starters because they're much more smarter. I've been in the business for 3 decades, so I'm a bit cynical also. Will this happen? But to be honest, I will leave it to the smart guys out here like Shashank. I deal with him. To come up with some solutions on how to deliver also to the farmer in an efficient manner. I think that's where we lose a lot of time, money, and energy. So look forward to the discussions and hearing in. I'm more of a listener, to be honest, in this case. As I said, 3 decades in the business. Yeah.
Thanks, Sanjeev. Very interesting. You did 700 digital meetings in COVID with farmers. That's a very interesting number. Yeah, I think we all have our perception around farmers' digital adoption, but these kind of figures, throws perception out of the gear. Yeah, let's move over to Abhijit from PI Industries. I think agrochemical is a huge business for any e-commerce players. Abhijit, your views on alternate channels, digital channels?
Thanks, Hemendra. Firstly, I would like to say hello to everyone. I've been listening to some very interesting views. I was also supposed to be joining with Dr. Raman Ramachandran. For some reason, he could not. So he asked me to apologize on his behalf. Now, I'd like to I've been in the space I've been into agri sector and managing the e-commerce and the digitization vertical of PI Industries for the last 5-6 years. Prior to that, I've been a technology guy. I've been in telecom for a very long time. So I've seen this space right from the inception days. I've been in telecom for about 15 years. So my views are in two parts. Firstly, we need to understand the evolution of e-commerce, and there are some learnings and there are some things which are very clearly coming out of it, and then put a context to it in terms of relevance to our industry and the scenarios and the opportunities and the challenges. E-commerce, as you all know, that started somewhere around 2000, the first burst. A lot of people, every third person wanted to be an e-commerce player. It was all about creating noise, trying to get some attention and maybe some rounds of funding, but the model was not very transacting, hence not very sustainable. So over a period of time, most of the average shelf life player of an e-commerce player was almost less than 2 years. Then there was a pause for some years. And then this industry came back again in maybe something close to about 2012, where some more serious players and some more diversified players came in. And though the number of players was huge, the ideas were a lot, but this was mainly controlled by a very few big pocket players who were doing some meaningful work in the space. Could be the consumer goods, people like Amazon, Flipkart, could be the travel space, could be other spaces. Now, we need to understand that there is a lot of digitization which is happening all around us. But what is happening right now, at least in our sector, there is more of information exchange one way or both ways. In our agri space, I've been doing a lot of surveys from time to time to understand the what is the buzz at the farmer end, right? So what we get is like 42% people in the farming security, digitization is equal to WhatsApp. So about 20% is like YouTube, and maybe some 10-12% is Facebook. So all these things are nice, but do they help really in transacting? So for me, my thoughts are in three parts. One, how do we grow this space? There are three factors which are going to play a role in building this or binding this story together. One is it should solve a problem. What are the problems of a farmer? Farmer has lack of knowledge and information. He has lack of access. As one of the panelists said, that there is a whole lot of millions of fragmented farmers. So there is no model that we can replicate from West, because our average land holding is very small. The farmer is very basic. He's exploited by the retailer because he's kind of tied to the miracle of credit and other things, knowledge, everything is happening through the retailer. Financial challenges, he's living between two cycles of debt. He's not getting, is he getting value for whatever products that he's getting? The answer is clearly no. His biggest problem is low productivity or low yield per acreage. Is anybody solving that problem? And lastly, is there a model which is farm to fork, which is like kind of solving all his problems? That is one part. The second part is there should be an ecosystem. It's very nice to talk about new ideas, trying to sell, but is there an ecosystem to manage all this? The ecosystem starts with the logistical nightmare. Logistics is a nightmare. It's not just a challenge. There are regulations, especially in the AgChem. You can send this by courier. You can't send this by courier. Then there is no one-stop shop. Thirdly, is the digital penetration still is limited to only this information exchange that I said. And fourthly, there are so many apps. They have low penetration, but they're at times so confusing because I mean, some of these apps are so heavy. I mean, how many apps can a farmer have on his mobile, even if you say that he's tech savvy? So, and what problem is he solving? And the third part is, for anything to progress, it has to make economic sense, because people come and people go, but people who stay are the ones who make money. The proposition has to make money. So my thoughts are, I think there are enough and more strengths in the sector. There are people with technology. There are people in the input segment. There are people in the other side of the story where there are buyers or sourcers or retailers. They should all come together and put a story together. There should be one stop shop platform which solves all these needs, whether it be advisory, whether it be hand holding, whether it be getting the products at the right price and at the doorstep, or whether picking up his produce and getting it to destinations, or maybe helping him store, maybe financing, insurance. So I think if all of us go in a fragmented way, because I've been trying multiple models for last 3 years and I'm getting very encouraging response, but if I'm growing at 200% in my endeavors, but what is the base? And if you look at the contribution of e-commerce as a size of the transaction of the industry, I don't know even if it gets into a 1 or 2% percentage points. So the potential is there, and farmer is very responsive. And as a lot of panelists said, that this COVID story is kind of building a new India. We are doing average 10 to 15 farmer meets on Facebook every day. So I think that's my summation, that let's all get together rather doing fragmented efforts. I think there is enough and more for everybody. And thank you so much.
Thanks, Abhijit. And I think we should take it up role of channels like WhatsApp, Facebook, YouTube in building access to farmers, because a lot of farmers are very comfortable with them rather than an app. And also your suggestion on a full stack platform, one-stop shop. I think these are I think very important points. I will come back to that. I think from the corporate section, we have the last one, Devinder Chawla from EY. Devinder, you've been part of the industry for a long time. Do you want to comment on it?
Yeah, thanks, Hemendra. And kind of a lot of the points have been already covered. Let me kind of pick a few of them. I think the important part is, which got mentioned in some shape or form multiple times, is the financing bit. Interestingly, when I talk to people outside India, a lot of them say agriculture in India is a financing business. Okay, and that's the perspective that somebody from a distance has about agriculture in India. And it has kind of shown up in points that Rohit made, or Mahesh made, or even Mr. Keswan made initially, that this whole retailer play of, because he's financing, providing credit, and he's probably one of the biggest influencer in the decision making of the farmer, which is to my mind a big issue, because he may not have his intent might be more self-centered than the farmer-centered. Okay, so that to my mind is a very, very important aspect, and I'll just come back to how do we need to kind of take that into account, and what initiatives can we take around that. The second point that I would want to pick up is what Rohit said right in the beginning, is about the potential disruption where some parts of the supply chain may not exist in the future as we go forward. I think that's a very, very important aspect to keep in mind. And instead of kind of letting it happen on its own by default, a lot of things can be done by design. Okay, and that's where the whole e-commerce and this platform aspect comes into play. An important thing that I would want to highlight, and probably the corporate players know this more than me, is that from the farm gate, or sorry, from the factory gate to the farmer's hand, there is almost about 20 to 28% of the cost, right? The realization that a company has and the money paid by the farmer, the gap is almost about 20 to 28%, depending on which agri-input we are talking about. Now, that money is the play that we have to kind of finance this transformation of the supply chain. And this is the money that the e-commerce players, and I completely agree with what Abhijit said, that today e-commerce is probably a fraction of a percent in the entire industry volume. We are talking about a very, very, very large industry. If I include the bulk fertilizers, we're talking of upwards of 2 lakh crores. Okay, so we are talking of a very large industry, and the e-commerce has a very small play. But coming back to the point, is that this 20 to 28% is what needs to drive by design the efficiencies and the disruptions and the transformations that we need in this supply chain. Okay, and e-commerce, as compared to the corporates on agri-input side, has the ability to even look at the other side, where I'm talking of farm gate to the hands of the consumer or the producer or the processor, which is another chunk, and that percentage varies from produce to produce very, very significant. So we are talking of a significant value, which today can be leveraged for what transformations we want to drive in this entire value chain. Okay. The third point which I would want to make is that, pardon my saying this, but most of the corporates have been essentially looking at digitization or farmer data or farmer service to drive their own interest. If you look at equipment companies, they'll look at relationship with the farmer to leverage his loyalty for sales. Okay. Maybe agri-inputs players would look at helping the farmer improve the yield eventually, so that his share of wallet with them improves, and so on and so forth. I think what is also important is over a period of time, corporates have been spending a lot of money on setting up their farmer databases, building relationship with the farmers, having categories of farmers, the influencer farmer and the smallholder farmer, and so on and so forth. And somewhere you have a kind of information asymmetry which has come in. So that has become a kind of a strategic tool in the hands of the corporates, that if I have a larger farmer database and I'm doing various things, what we are ignoring is the government is sitting with a much, much larger farmer database today. Okay. My proposition to the government and the industry would be, let's remove this information asymmetry. Let's share the farmer data with everybody. Okay. So that all the efforts and money that is being spent on gathering data and connecting and so on and so forth is then productively used for how do I improve the farmer service and bring higher yields and higher money in the entire ecosystem. Okay, so I think these are the three key points. And I would also want to kind of come back to a very interesting point that Abhijit made, where there has to be a problem to solve. There has to be some economic gain for everybody, and then only that proposition will work. I think these are very, very important aspects that we need to keep in mind as we design this transformation in the whole ecosystem going forward. And e-commerce is a lever that we have. Unfortunately, a very, very unfortunate event of COVID is today accelerating some of the transformation, which probably we should have done 15, 20 years back. Okay, but let's use that as well. Whatever drives this transformation is going to be of good use for us. So I'll stop there. But these are the points that I wanted to make.
Thanks, Devinder. I think we should discuss the role of open source digital platforms. You are right. I think a lot of startups spend disproportionate time in gathering data, which, if publicly available, can make much more sense to spend their energies on something more fruitful. So very valid point. So we are done with the corporate section. We have many e-commerce players in the room. I don't have any particular order, so please, anyone who wants to come in, please switch on your video, wave your hand, and we'll get you in. And if you don't volunteer, I'll pick your name and ask you to speak. So, anyone who wants to start?
Can I add one point?
Yes,
just
Mr.
to add to what Mr. Devinder Chawla said. See, yeah, I don't know whether you have noticed, in this time when they announced the measures after COVID, they have very specifically taken up this possibility of sharing the government available data with the startups. It is one of their topics that have been come up. So I think there is a policy movement in that direction. I think we need to accelerate it. And there are two areas policy movement, I think, as a group we may have to push is the EC part of it. That is whatever job they are trying to work on in the Essential Commodities Act and the APMC Act. Unless these things see the end, I think a lot of e-com efforts will suffer. I think this also we should not forget. I just wanted to mention it here before we go ahead. And last thing which I've been requesting the people in the system is consider the agricultural input and agricultural input suppliers and the entire space as essential commodity, not an essential commodity act, but as an essential commodity, so that even when there is problem time, these people can work without any other hindrance. So I think these three are essential to change the agriculture, and this will also help all the digital stuff today we are talking. Let me just close it at this point.
I was just going to add that we have sort of three segments of folks here in both e-commerce, logistics, and sort of farmer engagement, right? And I think there were pointed questions and comments, right? Perhaps if we can kind of get folks in these different areas to address some of those would be good.
Sure, Ritu. Amit, I see you on the video. Amit, can you come in? And my request will be just spend one or two just say one or two lines about the startup, but it'll be good to get your reaction to what have you heard so far from other corporates.
Sure, sure. So, I have co-founded Unnati along with my partner Ashok, and in fact we have more like a payments plus input supply to the farmer kind of an approach that we have had till now. So, in fact, that leads me to one of the key points that I think is very critical for the success of any e-commerce. So why only in agri? The moment of truth actually is when the transaction happens. And most of the platforms only succeed when they have solved payments as a very key point of the whole experience for the customer. So till the time the payments is offline, things will remain offline. Till the time, the moment the payments will come digital and online, things will start moving through the online platforms. And when I say online, commerce is always a mixture of a online and offline experience of how good the delivery is and how prompt the delivery is and the stuff. So I think there is a lot of stuff that needs to be done yet. In fact, I mean, a lot of the work that we have done in the past has been aided by the fact that we have been able to penetrate our prepaid card well into the sugarcane farmer network. So that was the reason of the success of why a lot of the farmers have very aggressively gone ahead and purchased through our tech platform oriented with a combination of the physical delivery network that we have. So I think payment is something that whether payment is through the source is whether it is credit or whether it is from the farmer's own money, at the end of the day, it's a success depends a lot on the payment interface. And in fact, at Unnati, that is one of the endeavors that we have is how do we make payment so smooth for the farmer that the commerce happens on top of it. And while logistics, because of the particular nature of the kind of products that we have in agri, whether it is agri chemicals or whether it is fertilizers, one is bulk, the other is a hazardous material to be transported, there will always be limitations on that. So the experience of the farmers for any commerce service where it is built on payment and on logistics and delivery, at least payment should be 100% smooth, while logistics under the constraint should also end up doing a much better job than what we are doing today. So I think these are the two critical pillars of any commerce services, and the success of how much we can really be sort of be able to look at the adoption is going to come from these two factors. While the advisory part is definitely very critical, but that comes more as a sticky factor rather than a breaker point for the farmer to move from an offline only to a digital transaction. So I think that is what I would like to say in addition to whatever the other speakers have told till now.
Thanks, Amit. Thanks. Naveen, you want to come in? Naveen from Napanta, I can see you. Just unmute.
Yeah. Thank you, Hemendra. Thanks for the opportunity. Good evening, panelists. So I'm Naveen, founder of Napanta. Napanta is a Kisan digital agriculture platform started in 2017. Right now, with almost 2 lakhs farmer base who are subscribed to our digital platform, and we are with one of the most active farmers. Right now, around 80,000+ farmers are active on our platform. As Rohit and Abhijit said, so when it comes to the farmers, there are a couple of issues we need to address through digital. So especially when it comes to the seed to the market linkages, everywhere and every point is very crucial to the farmer. So farmer looks for a solution, all related solution at one particular platform. So that's where we have built a very comprehensive platform where a farmer can get inputs through our e-commerce, then market linkages and agri equipment rentals, as well as the advisory, as well as most of the very critical thing is almost out of 100%, 99% of the farmers are unconventional, regular farming methods. Where generally when it comes to our advisory part, most of our universities are recommending only the kind of chemical names. So generally these kind of stuff when they go to the dealers and distributors, the finding out the proper pesticide and proper products is going to be a biggest question mark. Even we have come up with that particular thing also into the digital platform where the farmer come up with the one particular chemical name, they can find n number of branded traded products which are available in the market. So to that extent, we have come into the picture. But what we learned from last 3 years of our experience with the farmers, only digital is not going to be work out. Only digital is not going to be work out. And when we trying to do such a kind of e-commerce sales, a lot of our what you say restrictions on the sale, and there are some constraints when we are trying to courier the kind of pesticides or whatever the products which we supposed to send to the farmer. So that is one particular issue which we are facing. And second stuff is, as you said, when it comes to the equipment rentals, farmers, we can't, we are not able to take from other trustee resources. So where we can give a certain kind of commitment to the equipment owner, and when the equipment owner to the farmer, if farmer says no, that is one particular engagement which is really impacting our reputation in the ground. So that is not really happening at this moment. Then online market linkages, we even tried with that in this COVID. Almost we have worked with around 700 farmers across AP and Telangana region, but out of that we are able to close only 50 to 55% of 55 numbers of the farmers produce effectively market linkage to the buyer. There are a lot of mistrust which is happening across traders as well as the buyers when it comes to the money transaction or quality of the produce. There are a couple of issues when it comes to the farmer related stuff. So as usual, with this COVID, it has given a great exposure and experience. Probably what I'm feeling is because of this COVID issue, we got almost next 10 years of experience in this particular 40 days. Now, we have explored a new variety of engagement with the farmers with the digital and the physical setup. So very quick manner we have moved our plans, and we have collaborating with a couple of entities wherever they have the local projects. Now, in this regards, actually, what I can tell you is we are engaging with a couple of entities at various places in AP and Telangana, where we are targeting 50,000 farmers in one particular mandal. And we want to work with them, and we want to try by providing the inputs, advisory, and as well as the market linkages, including equipment rentals. We are very excited to start this particular pilot, and we want to see the progress, how it is going to be. If it is going to be successful, probably this is going to be a milestone, and this can enable us, to go, across India within a similar kind of setup in upcoming days.
Sure, Naveen.
Yeah.
So that's a good number to target. I see Shashank, I see Praveen, I see Amit. Shashank, you want to come in?
Yeah, sure, Hemant. So it's a great cohort, certainly, corporate and startups. So it's good to see all of us together here. I think just one submission that in this situation, needless to say, that responsibility on us in total, that's huge, and even higher than the normal days. While working with farmers in eastern part of India around multiple touch points, not specifically around input, but input, advisory, financing, and output, I strongly believe that and considering that input as a first touch point with farmer in a particular season, so that's why the responsibility of the entire input players, I think that's pretty high. Because of scarce supply, because of not having right information, it's very much likely that that farmers basically they will go for low quality agri input. The kind of system we have here in India, the real outcome will be visible in the month of November and December when the harvest will come in our hand, right? So the data will say that area under cultivation is phenomenal, but because of the poor quality input, the real impact in terms of harvest, in terms of the produce, that will be visible in the month of October or November. And I think if there is a real concurrence between startups and corporate, I think we can certainly bridge the gap. so that we can educate farmers to go for right quality of agricultural input. We can ensure the availability of right input at right price, at the right time. And I think in the short term, especially in this COVID scenario, I think that's what DeHaat is focusing. It's just a matter of fact that since with farmers, we engage for advisory, we engage for output, and that's why we are in a position to help them for financing as well. And that's why we are probably in a relatively better situation than last year, that that we can help farmer, not just with the input, but again for the financing in a kind of in a bundling way. But that's what we are focusing. And with all corporate, of course, Sanjeev sir mentioned, but all corporate, in fact, Rohit is here as well. And there in our bits and pieces, we, again, within our system, I'm sure all these startups, in fact, they have a number of evidence at their own references. But I think that's what I strongly believe, that that we all should focus as a real collaboration, and this is the right time. In a very blunt way, if we all believe that input is a dealer-centric market, and if we have to get rid of that without a right collaboration with startup and corporate in a full-fledged way, I really mean it, in a full-fledged way, in terms of right supply, right price, right margin, right value proposition for them, both the sides. I think this is the right time to get that done. So that's it, Raman. And Ritu, thank you.
Thanks, Shashank. Absolutely, I think we should leverage the opportunity that we have got, which probably is unprecedented. And you're right. I think the responsibility on all of us is far higher than in a usual situation.
Yep.
Praveen, you want to come in? Praveen from Behtar Zindagi.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Praveen Rajpal. I'm founder of Behtar Zindagi. We're an agri marketplace. So first of all, I would like to thank everybody to giving great insight, and especially ThinkAg team to getting together the all agri-input companies together with a startup. I personally feel that all the agri-input companies will play a very big role in terms of reaching out to the farmer in a digital way. So what I see, there's a two factor which is very important when you reach out to a farmer: trust and affordability. For any farmer to trust any startup will not be always an easy, and it will be always difficult for the startup to engage with the farmer. I think there the agri-input companies plays a major role with the startup. We can build an ecosystem whereby farmer knows that, okay, whatever product or service he is getting, it's right. Second is the affordability. Again, like Mr. Kava said, that it's very difficult to replace the existing retail network or the system. So we need to create a ecosystem where the retailer and also can be part of it, because ultimately, as most of the agri-input companies are there, it's very difficult to immediately replace them. So better we create an ecosystem like a marketplace which we have, so that all the stakeholder can be benefited out of the digital economy. So that's what I want to say at this moment.
You want to talk about role of YouTube, Facebook, WhatsApp? I guess you do a lot of business on these platforms, Praveen.
Yeah. See, instead of focusing on promoting website or app, we decided to focus on the places where the customers are already there, where they are comfortable, and where they have access. As you are aware, on all Jio phones, YouTube and WhatsApp is already available. So we started almost 6 months back doing a transaction on these platforms. So we get almost 10 to 15% of our transaction from WhatsApp as a platform also. And again, now more features are there on these digital platforms. So we need to understand whether we go and push our app or website, or we should be available on the platform which is already penetrated, and how we can do it, build a trust initially, and offer your products on those platforms.
Okay. Amit, are you there? Amit Akihal from Tusker Transport.
Yes, I'm here. Let me just turn on my video.
Sure. I think you.
Hi. So again, just it's great to be a part of this, a participant on this panel, and I've just I've learned a lot today, and it's a great conversation so far. I wanted to jump in. I mean, I guess just to introduce myself initially, Tusker is we're on the logistics side. We're an intra-regional freight network, right? We're not limited to agriculture, but agri, depending on seasonality, accounts for as much as a quarter of the goods we move. And it's kind of agricultural inputs are kind of like one of our key sectors, because obviously operating in a rural regional market in India, more than 60% of all households are connected. So we realize that is the market, that is the household market that we're after. I just wanted to touch on a few things that people have hinted at, and that's the idea that the retailer, the dealer, can be taken out of the value chain. I think it might be a bit premature, because if you look at the CNF to distributor to the farmer, to the retailer, then to the farmer relationship, the retailer, first of all, the CNF is often located more than 60 to perhaps even 200 kilometers away from the farm gate, right? And then it gets disaggregated and it goes to distributors that may be actually in the same town as the CNF, or maybe get you within 30 to 40 kilometers of the farm gate, right? And then finally, the retailers might get you as close as 15 kilometers to the farm gate. Now, just from a logistics point of view, the cost of disaggregating, it becomes very suboptimal if you try to take those people who are not just doing the financial transactions. People brought up that they offer credit, and they're a big part of like the credit economy in the rural area, but they're also acting as last mile stockists, okay? And I do think that farmers value them as last mile stockists, right? And then I think bringing another thing is the difference between agri-inputs and agri-outputs are two different things. I see Rick and Gandhi is here, and he's got a great company called Loop Tech, and I know what their work greatly on the last I know of in agri-outputs. And I think the real thing is the need for app-based transactions are probably greater on that side, because the uncertainty of the transaction is greater, right? It's really hard to make a decision, a farmer to make a decision sitting at the farm gate, and there's so much uncertainty until it gets to the APMC yard or the Mandi or whatever, right? It's not a done deal. There's grading and evaluation and a lot of other things need to happen, right? So that risk actually brings a lot of other dimensions to the logistics, right? Whereas when we're talking, and many of the corporate leaders are here in agri-inputs, we see people where it is a standardized product. It's often a branded product. And hence, there's just so much less uncertainty in the minds of the farmer in terms of like the transactional certainty, right? So I think it changes. And so I guess the big takeaways are, I think that the digitization is a bigger problem on that side. Taking the dealer out is maybe not the best way to optimize distribution at this point. They could be your super user for the distribution. And I think one final point, and I know I'm taking a bit of time here, is that someone had spoken at length about utility to the farmer. And if a typical smallholding farmer orders agri-inputs, say 4 times a year, no one wants an app for that, for something they use 4 times a year. That is something you want a super user like your retailer or your dealer to be using, right? Now, I think the exception to that is that we don't want to underestimate the utility of WhatsApp and Telegram and a couple other things. They do have potential for transactions on them. They're growing in that way. And a lot of companies, like, we have an app. So I'm telling you from the perspective of somebody who has an app and is seeing the utility of WhatsApp and Telegram. And people like us are more likely to want to integrate, to use Telegram and WhatsApp as channels, rather than say, no, you have to fit into our paradigm. And every farmer has to sort of be a Tusker user, right? I don't see that as being the case yet. So that's just some comments for now. And I'd like to, hand it over to the next panelist.
Thanks, Amit.
Yeah.
Very interesting points on disaggregation, and I'm sure there's a huge economics issue in on delivery side to each and every farmer doorstep. It need not be. It's very tough, vis-a-vis any urban market. The routes are not defined, the addresses are not proper. So I can imagine the challenges in doorstep delivery when it comes to agri inputs. Who wants to come in next? I see Shardul. Shardul, you want to come in?
Hey, Amanda, sure. So no, this is awesome. I think for me, I'm just smiling. I think there couldn't have been a better time to be in the digital ag input commerce, whatever you call it, space. I think I have never seen this much tailwind in this that we're seeing now. I think it's probably the best time to be in this. I think the ecosystem is obviously opening up, and it's it's coincidental, I believe. I mean, it's unfortunate to some extent that it's happening with COVID, but the pain points that a farmer faces. Shashank spoke about quality, about access to good inputs, about information. I think we're better positioned to solve for that than anybody else, any local retailer. So while I agree with Amit that the distribution or the traditional network is never going to go away, but I think we can do a significant better job than them. I also believe that it's not going to be just inputs. It's going to be a combination of inputs and the right advice and the delivery, doing all of that together, which is what we've attempted to solve for. And it's a beast, it's a monster. So yeah, it's no easy task, but I think if we can solve for that together, I believe that's how we will build trust. A pure e-commerce platform, it's going to be tough to build, trust because the farmer doesn't see you. A pure offline commerce platform, then you're no different than the nearby retailer, and they'll look at you as the same thing. So how do you blend the two? How do you build trust by doing the right thing over and over again? I think that's going to be the key. Greater trust, I believe, from the input companies as well. Of their willingness and ability to experiment. So I think that would be the ask from a startup standpoint to two larger input companies. And I think if they are more collaborative and more supportive, and they believe that, look, this is the way that the future is going to evolve, I think that'll help the cause tremendously. I think there was a point about data and data share. I truly hope that happens from the government. Practically, I don't think it's going to be possible if I don't offer us money and time to get it. So it's not available for free. The only person who can probably give it for free would be the government. The challenge, I believe, with the data is, we are transacting with farmers over years. The transaction or the data of a farmer that we transacted last year has changed. The mobile number has changed. So, even if we get something from the government, the accuracy of that is going to be, questionable significantly. So I think that's just some of the challenges. But yes, I think if they can help there, that will be super, helpful for all of us here to reduce our CAC. So yeah, I think just some of my thoughts.
Shardul, one question before I let you go. So you are in the business for almost a decade. Have you seen improvement in digital adoption by the farmers? Do you think it's changing for good?
Absolutely. I think it's changing for good. It's changing dramatically quickly. And but I agree. I think how do you, so whether it's is it going to be an app? Is it going to be a call center? Is it going to be WhatsApp? I think each startup will have to find their sweet spot there. If you have an app that's going to be used, again, I think I believe Amit said for 4 input transactions, it's nobody's going to keep that. If you have WhatsApp, then there are obviously hundreds of junk groups. So how do you differentiate there? And Facebook, I believe there is just too much noise. So yes, I think finding the sweet spot and finding your niche is going to be the key. But there is no question. I don't think they're going back. I think we are seeing as high as 70% adoption of smartphones.
What about digital payments? Do you think it's going to come in big way or unlikely?
I think, as Amit said, I hope it does. Our experience with digital payments has been challenging. That unless and until the farmers' income themselves is not digitized, there's no way that they're going to pay digitally. So we can have, you can have as many POS machines, in a retail shop, or, UPI, Beam, whatever it may be, then he is, if a farmer doesn't have money in his bank, he's not going to pay digitally. We have not seen that as a pain point for the farmer. They are happy to pay by cash. It's our pain point, so that we don't want the cash and we want digital. So how do we make it an exciting thing for them to transact digitally? I think that's a big challenge.
Good point, Shardul. I also believe that unless the access to bank branches, bank accounts go up, digital payment doesn't really make sense. So yeah, let's hope that improves. I see Siddharth, Sujay, Aman, Rajesh on the frame. Please go ahead. Anyone of you want to come in, please.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. So this is Amandeep from Bharat Rohan. So we started as a company where we utilized drone-based hyperspectral imaging to identify crop losses, in the early stages, and then provide advisories to the farmers. And I think this has been, discussed earlier as well, that advisory alone is not a sought after solution for by the farmers. So that's something that we also learned while working with them, and that's how we evolved our business into a marketplace for the agriculture inputs, where we use technology as a anchor point to identify what are the which number of farmers in a particular village have a requirement of a particular pesticide, and then coordinate with a local distributor or a dealer who can supply the product to the farmer, and that's how we also generate our revenues. And in the similar fashion, we also collect different data points while working with the farmers, and those data points, right from the stage of sowing until the harvest, we collect that information and then aggregate this to sell a commodity to a buyer. And that's again where we act as a marketplace in terms of facilitating a transaction in terms of the agri produce. Also, when we have a large number of farmers working with us in a particular district, for example, we are operational in Barabanki district of Uttar Pradesh. So we have around 36 farmers on our platform. This also acts as a very good ground truth for us, and this we can leverage as for our satellite-based imaging. And there we use different points like crop classification, crop estimation, and then give detailed maps and dashboards to the agri-input companies so that they can identify crop density on village or taluka level or tehsil level, and then plan their operations better for their field forces. So that's how our journey has been, and we are working with now in now around 61 villages across Barabanki district, and then we have started our operations in nearby regions of Sitapur, Fatehpur districts. Yeah.
I think one question to you, Aman, as well as Siddharth, probably Sujay also. Do you see any future for pure advisory models? Do you think those models can make money in India, or essentially you have to link advisory to supply chain?
Yeah, Siddharth can go first.
Yeah, sorry. So I have quite contrasting thoughts here in the case of advisory. Specifically, when we talk about crop inputs, we see that the entire supply chain is dependent on local retailers. But the one of the biggest problems that we see is that the retailer also acts like an advisor, and that's where a conflict of interest occurs. He would advise the farmer to buy the crop input which has maximum margins, and even some organized players or quality crop input manufacturers struggle with that, where the local brands are more supported because they somehow are able to give higher margins. That's where I feel that even in e-commerce, the advisory and crop input supply should be completely decoupled. Otherwise, we are bringing the same model online where the person who is delivering the goods is also advising. So he has a conflict of interest to deliver some high margin products. So a country like India, where advisory plays a very critical role in agriculture output, we need pure advisory players. Now, to take a few names, players like Plantix or Krishify has been doing pretty good. Now, as far as I understand, they are not into e-commerce yet. So pure advisory players are needed, and they can become deal generators, lead generators for e-commerce companies. They can just pass on the leads to e-commerce and they can deliver. So I think the decoupling is needed there. One other thought that I would like to share is that before the COVID situation, a company like ours, which is again pure advisory, Bharat Agri was also using a mixture of physical and digital, where like Mr. Rohit had said in the beginning, that farmers are ready to come online only if the advisory is very, very valuable. But the onboarding or the discovery still used to happen offline. So we were a mix of digital and physical, but after the COVID situation, since the physical movement had stopped, it deeply impacted us. But then we kind of thought that we still have to get the farmers on the platform. And during the lockdown period itself, we have onboarded more than thousands of paid subscription farmers on it. So even though we initially were completely against a pure digital play, we were thinking that it will always be a mix of physical and digital. But at least the COVID situation has forced us to think that maybe the pure digital thing may work. We are not still sure about it. We are completely currently contemplating it. But at least during the COVID situation, we have seen that farmers are transacting digitally to buy our advisory services, and they are happening in huge numbers. So we are also hopeful about it.
Okay. So they want to add to it?
Yeah, hi. Hi. Sujay from Yeah, you wanted to go, Praveen?
Yeah. See, I fully agree with what Siddharth is saying, that we need to decouple the advisory from the product offering. Otherwise, farmer feels the same way when he's buying from any retailer and he's buying from any e-commerce. So that way, I think we can work with a company like Siddharth, where we are, irrespective of what we are offering to the farmer, advisory will. Audible?
Praveen, you are breaking a little bit.
Hi, here's Simon from Plantix actually. So maybe I can also add something concerning giving advisory to the farmer. I don't know if you know Plantix. Plantix is doing image recognition for plant diseases. So farmers just need to snap an image of their sick plants, and we give them treatment and the right product to buy. So actually, and that's what Siddharth also mentioned, is that we come from the position that it's enormously important to not have a label on our shirt saying we are from a certain brand, but providing really independent knowledge to the farmer. And I think this is quite important to also make them stronger in their position when they then talk to the retailer, having that better understanding of what they really want to buy and what they want to treat. However, I really believe that the retailer is an important position in the whole value chain. That's what we also experienced, or I do not really believe in the last mile transporting products to the farmer actually, since, I mean, Vanessa said, it's not that massively important that the farmer gets the product delivered to their doorstep. I think he has much more and bigger problems to solve. And actually what we do at the moment is integrating the retailer in our system. So not only giving the farmer via our app a prescription and the treatment and the product, but also sending them to their local retailer, making sure the retailer gets the same information, what kind of molecule, what kind of remedy the farmer needs. So giving information to both sides, making sure the farmer really benefits in getting the right product, not spending money on the product, which just helps in the end. So I think, yeah, in my point of view, everything needs to become digital somehow, because otherwise there is no way in supporting farmers all along their way, because they are just too much. But I think the retailer will always play an important role there. Thank you.
And Simon, do you charge farmers for advisory?
No, it's for free. We are coming back to the point with the data. So we do not believe in this system. Farmers are actually paying with giving us data about plant diseases, what they are growing, and which is in the end really interesting to other stakeholders, also the corporates maybe sitting here on this panel. What we started to do is actually joining forces with another startup from India with Sypply, and delivering products from corporates to retailers. So we actually build an ecosystem now from the farmer, including the retailer and the producers, the input producers. And I also want to underline what Amit and Jadu saying before, that what would really help us if the corporates are becoming more and more open to new solutions. So really believing in digitization also means looking into new opportunities, giving startups a chance to show that we can change and digitize somehow the whole value chain.
Thanks, Simon. So I think we have Rajesh, Sujay, Satish, and Ranuka who have not spoken, so we'll talk to them. And with everyone's permission, we'll probably extend the session by another 15-20 minutes.
Yes, so I'll just add in a bit to what you had started off with. This is Sujay from WRMS, and on the advisory part, when you're asking about it, so it's quite clear that advisory is purely a trust business, and with the farmer, it's actually about building a relationship. So this relationship building starts at the dealer level, and also the face of the organization who touches with the farmer. That's the sales promoter, or maybe the sales officer. So if the trust buildup happens correctly at that level, then all this digital enabling, which is happening either in the form of SMS advisory or in the form of notifications on applications, they probably get accepted to a certain extent. The second comes the role of whether these advisories get linked to brands. I mean, the molecules get names then after that. So as long as the advisory is purely about saying a particular molecule is good for a certain action, then it is pure play advisory, and that counts well if the relationship building has been done correctly. But if it comes along with, say, use an X brand, then the farmer also tries and see what's the reason behind that of putting a brand in the picture. So these are the actions one will have to see what is the offering which has been given. We've been working with farmers since 15 years now. So it's a long drawn company, and in the tech space, or say limited, we are into risk management. So we're into agriculture and dairy risk management. We work with a few million farmers and a few geographies across the world, many states in India. All that stuff is happening. But we realize that this tech thing is only limited to an extent where we have an offline support to it. So if we have to provide an application, the farmer has a smartphone, it's fine. If he doesn't have a smartphone, what's an option for that? So can we create an option for the farmer who can use the similar kind of a digital offering without having a smartphone? So there have been cases where we've provided in the villages at, say, the panchayat halls, digital equipment, say interfaces, where the farmers can come. They come and seek their information, including advisories or including inputs or including sourcing information other than that. And that probably, in spite of not having a smartphone, they've been able to utilize the benefits of the digital things. Now, digitization for the farmer starts with YouTube and ends with WhatsApp. With lot of applications there in the marketplace, it's correct as it was pointed out in the beginning that finding the right application for the farmer is again a way of how one is able to connect with him well. So when a call center guys call up, they don't talk about the application, they talk to him about whether he's being serviced correctly, or the offering which has been given to him has been taken care of well. For example, we run a unique program which provides a farm level yield assurance to the farmer, which no one does that in the world. So we're probably the only guys who do something like this. Now, when we run a program like this, an application just becomes a tool to share information with him. It's much more than that. And this much more offering requires on-field support, a back office support in the form of a call center, and then a front-end support probably in the form of an application maybe or an SMS offering. Now, similarly, when these kind of things go to an agri-input company, it helps them map out a potential area where they can focus a particular input for the season. So the point is, how do we pick up data, analyze it, track it back to historical data in the form of creating load maps of pests and diseases, or for creating market maps for certain molecules, and then trying and overlaying it with the current offering in picture, so that when it goes to the farmer, it goes as a complete solution with the backing of either the brand or the groundswell on the ground, which is actually talking about things. So this is how we feel could probably be one of the indicators of doing business in the future now. That was one of my ideas.
That's great. That's a very important point. Giving assurance to farmer on income, I think it's a very unique product, I must say.
Yeah.
Rajesh, you want to come in? I think you've been waiting for a long time. So
Yeah, so I am from Krishify digital community and farmer engagement platform for farmers. So first of all, I'll touch the point raised about farmers engagement on a digital platform and about retention, right? So over the past 10 months, we have acquired close to 1 million farmers, and the good thing, like we have seen some good signs of farmers retaining the platform. And I will totally agree with Mr. Keshwan who raised an issue that it doesn't have to be only linked with advisory or information broadcast. So that's what we also totally believe in, and it has to solve some of the deeper problem in farmers' life. So the kind of platform, the kind of community that we have built. So right now, farmers being the core of the platform, and then slowly we are trying to bring in other stakeholders from the ecosystem. So farmers, the kind of use cases that are being served right now, for example, farmers are using the platform to sell their cattle. There is no structured marketplace for buying or selling cattle. It's like peer-to-peer transactions. So that is happening. Farmers who want to sell their used tractors, or also micro entrepreneurs in villages who grow their own varieties of seeds, or who grow produce vermicompost or organic fertilizers. They are using the platform to do some transaction. So that has been a key point. Another issue that I'd like to raise, given the current COVID situation, that Mr. Rohit also mentioned, that the last mile by retailers. So what we have recently seen that many retailers who are also on the platform reached out to us asking for their digital presence, right? So I mean, instead of right now, at least in this situation, instead of thinking about totally eliminating the retailers from the whole e-commerce value chain, I think it would be, for us, it would be a right strategy if we decide to go into commerce, to maybe work with them and use them as supply and build last mile logistics on top of it, to do the end fulfillment. So that's my take on it. Also, another point being a community and an interaction platform. So what we have is we get to know a lot about crop exposure in a certain area, or brand perception or kind of demand. So for example, a particular brand of seed or fertilizer or any particular agriculture implements, they differ completely from one geography to another geography, right? So basis that in what area, what kind of input is required, or what brand you need to work with to meet their demands. So that becomes very important. So it's also the data game, not just the fulfillment bit.
Thanks, Rajesh. I think we have 3 speakers left. Let's give them an opportunity. Satish, Renuka, and Akshan. Sorry for keeping you waiting. Please go ahead, and if you can be brief, that'll be useful.
Sure, definitely. So hi everybody, this is Renuka from BioPrime Agri Solutions. We are an agri-input company, and we develop biologicals which are based on plant signaling. So in terms of digitization, actually we focus rather on the last mile retailers than the farmers, and we've also, like Rajesh was saying, see them as valuable part of the chain. It's difficult to integrate the farmers into the system, but what we're trying to do is get an understanding of the demands from the farmer side. So on the products, we have QR codes and we incentivize the retailers to scan. So we understand what products are being liquidated real time, what the demand is, and that data gets stored, which can help in forecasting for the future seasons as well. So currently we are focusing on these kind of aspects. Slowly, we will definitely try to get the farmers connected to this. We still are figuring out a system to understand how to do this a little better at the farmer end. But like everybody's been saying, we see a lot of value in keeping the retailer into the chain built in. For multiple reasons, of course, the credit cycle is a very important part of it. And secondly, he also plays a role of an advisory. So for a new startup like us, the trust factor is very important. So the farmer doesn't know us. He has never, for us, or for the farmer, the face of the company or the trust is the retailer. So if the retailer is recommending, then the farmer has a little more trust in buying newer products as opposed to a corporate entity. It is a very significant or important part of having that trust from the retailer for a startup like us. Interestingly, we've also been running some COVID related programs. We've been running some COVID awareness programs. We've, through the retailers, managed distribution of some PPE kits for the retailers also, and running some farmer education programs on COVID. And surprisingly, we've seen a lot of demand or a lot of enthusiasm from the retailers for this. So it's not just the information about the products that we give, but it's a general information that we're able to share that connects and bonds and makes it into a much better platform or a suitable platform for everybody. So that's been our experience so far.
Thanks very much, Renuka. Satish, you want to come in?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Finally, glad to see a session on input supply digitization. Yeah, Vendra, always we see, downstream market linkages and digitization. So a lot of enthusiasm from the suppliers and also startups like us. It's a great, as Shradhu was mentioning, like the tailwind we see, great thing that's happening now. So what we see today is basically today's front-end channel. We see it's very inadequate to address the needs of the farmers. There are growing needs with the changing trends in the demand on the crops, and they are looking for quality, choice, transparency, and advisory. And above all, what we see is like they're looking for convenience and the comfort. And we believe that's possible only with the digital platforms, and we can achieve the scale, only with the digitization. And what we witness now is the heavy shift in the digital adaptation in the last 2 years. That's what we are all witnessing. And even recent study says that rural internet active users for the first time surpassed the urban users by 10% almost. So that is a great opportunity for all of us to build, the personalized engagement, leveraging the data. And it's a very targeted engagement that we are talking about over to a general engagement to the farmer. And leveraging this data at Picart, we use a lot of digital media channels like Facebook, YouTube, WhatsApp, all of the channels to build a very personalized crop advisory and help the farmer to choose the right products at the right stage of the crop. One panelist was saying, like, how can we capture the larger market share? It is at a very nascent stage. We all know about it, but the trend is emerging, and we see ecosystem is improving. So in order to capture this larger market share with the e-commerce or digital platforms, the corporates and startups like us, we need to work together in a very cohesive manner and with a very single objective of providing and also generating how we can generate more income for the farmer. So that should be the objective for both the corporates and the startups like us. Thank you.
Satish, I think one question, I think I just saw in the chat box, I think nobody talked about FPOs. Do you see an FPO as a route for a lot of these e-commerce players to scale, given the fact government is putting a lot of effort in building capacity out there?
Yes. So we are already putting together a model. So in case of FPO, the engagement and the services that we need to offer are kind of different from direct to farmer. So that is where the lending partner comes into the picture, and then inputs comes into the picture, and then engagement from the institutional or the FPO to the farmers comes into the picture. So we are trying to build an ecosystem with the couple of NBFC partners, how we can give that platform to them so that they. But it's an emerging trend, and good to see a lot of government initiatives also encouraging that.
Okay, Satish. Thanks very much. Akshay, sorry for keeping you waiting. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Sorry about the delay. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so Hemendra, thank you so much, and thank you so much to all the panelists for you can say putting forward their inputs. So probably for me it is more of a learning session instead of being I consider myself more as a learner in this session rather than a panelist. The reason being that let me start by introducing myself. So my name is Akshay Dikshit, and I'm the founder of Visatogo Innovations. So basically we are focused more towards post-harvest logistics and market linkages. So Agri-input is something that we are not directly associated with at this stage, unlike rest of you all who are directly or indirectly associated with the Agri-input industry. But however, during our course of time wherein we have actually deployed our software, so what we have done is we have a platform on which we onboard multiple buyers and farmers, particularly marginal farmers, and then we provide them with market linkages and aggregated logistics options. It's an Android-based application. And this is how, and what we've also made is we've also made a FPO management system for all these FPOs to set up their operations. So in this course of time where our system has been deployed with more than 3,000 farmers in primarily in Western India. So what we have seen is that a farmer, like as one of the panelists mentioned, that one of the key issue with a farmer is that he is willing to, you can say, install an application, but provided it provides him an end-to-end solution. Like provided each and every solution of it's like a one-stop solution for him. Let's say anything related to agriculture, this app is you can say the god of all. So that is something which is missing, and hence recently, like what we as Visatogo are also trying to focus on is, can we create hyper local markets and of agri-input industries? And when I say these hyper local, these are very highly geographical, you can say very restricted to particular geographies. And as Mr. Sujay mentioned, and also Amit from Tusker mentioned, as to removing these you can say retailers and wholesalers and these stockists out of this market might not be the best thing at this stage, considering these are your brand ambassadors of your agri-inputs of multiple companies. So what if we can enable these people in actually setting up a hyper local e-commerce platform? So that is what we are working in currently, and this session proved to be a very good input for me as to understanding the dynamics of the agri-input industry, and that is what we are working right now. So that's it from my side, Hemendra.
I think it'll be good for you to explore partnership with some of the e-commerce players on the input side.
Right, definitely.
Okay, so I think you're done with all the participants. We have still Mr. Keswan, Abhijit, maybe Sanjeev. If you want to say anything to these startups, any advice from you or any words of encouragement, I think that'll be good to conclude with.
Can I butt in with some questions here, Hemendra?
Sure, come in.
So, one of the things, and this is because we all talked about how, building this ecosystem is kind of important here, right? And I heard from the corporate side that somewhere scale as what's happening digitally is still limited. And there's friction for this to become much larger. In parallel, I heard from the startup side that, working with the corporates and, pulling both parties along is equally important, right? So I'd love to get a view from somebody from the corporate side as well as somebody from the startup side. What are these frictions here? How do we, we've all talked about how building one ecosystem would be beneficial for the entire industry. And how can this platform somehow start looking at addressing some of those friction points here so that we get to that, the goal that everyone, here seems to agree is what's should be there. Abhijit, are you going to answer that?
I work with a lot of these entrepreneurs, startup entrepreneurs. Now the biggest nightmare for us is logistics. We are able to connect to the farmers, but then what do we do next? Does it make sense? Then there are expectations in terms of service deliverables. He can't order today and get it after 1 week. Then there are regulations. So I think it's very important that though we consider at times the retailer is also one of the culprits in the entire exploitation gamut, but he is also an important ingredient in this ecosystem. So I think we should all collaborate and first fix this logistics very efficiently, and we have no choice, but we'll have to take the retailer in gamut, because he's also the financer, right? And he is the guy who has the hold on the last mile. So all these startups and us, let us all collaborate and make this model a much wider model. I mean, that's my take.
So Amit, do you think you can solve that problem if logistics is the, I mean, what's limiting you, given that that's the demand in this entire 21 people sitting here?
Myself or the other Amit?
I meant you, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, well, I mean, what I would say is we are actually quite deeply involved in agri-inputs. We work with many of the large corporates here, but on their regional level. So we really don't have a lot of our communication with the organization, with say Bayer or something, ends at the say regional CNF level. Now, if we get the impression, or if the corporate level's interested in doing something in vendor managed inventory, if they really want to keep that retailer in the value chain, but then also have a very direct relationship to the farmers, and they want to take control of it, if they want a data-driven pilot, which we capture all the transaction data to a granularity, I'm sure that they capture it down to the distributor level, but the distributor to the retail level can be very opaque for a lot of people. A lot of really interesting things can be done. We're already experimenting with seeing if non-financial transaction data can lead to financial inclusion for farmers and retailers, because automating credit scoring is going to be the only way to credit score 140 million people and see if distribution bottlenecks can be opened up. So I think like corporates can, there are a lot of opportunities for collaboration. There are so many, if you look around at how many startups are here today, regionally, you have a whole smorgasbord of people to work with regionally. So I do think there's a lot.
I'm going to interrupt you because I heard Abhijit say that, it's all nice to talk about digital, but we are physically selling products to the farmer here beyond the information.
Right.
The transportation, the actual transportation. Abhijit, correct me if I'm wrong.
Last mile.
So if I could say, if it's about that, we cross-cut across industry verticals. So we've already optimized the unit economics of moving agricultural inputs to the village. Like, I don't see that as a problem. I think the solution is there. It just is in the process of scaling geographically. There's probably people doing it in different pockets around India. We're focused on the regions that we're deployed in. I actually don't feel the unit economics and the reach, it's gonna happen. Like, this is not I mean, not to diminish the way we're looking at it now from an agri point of view, but the logistics industry is going to solve this, right? And what they're doing is that they're consolidating all these industry verticals and saying it's not an ag specific solution. It's the fact that FMCG you're going to send plywood and consolidate it with fertilizer, and you're going to consolidate it with anything that isn't a hazard to mix together on the same truck. Might not keep it with coriander leaves, right? Fertilizer and coriander leaves together, but you're going to aggregate these things, you're going to bring down the unit economics, and we're going to have a virtual network of fulfillment partners all around the country. And I think a lot of logistics people have the same vision. So Abhijit, to your question, the logistics headache, I see momentum on that side. And I also see a way that's going to happen. Now, what can we get from corporate partners is how can we accelerate that, is I think is if people want, if corporate partners think that they can leverage all the data we have, right, for further up the value chain. And, you know, there's a lot of opportunity for deep, but sometimes I don't feel on the corporate level, there's so many priorities that doing regional pilots that they plan on scaling for a lot of these things may not be where they're at yet, right? So sometimes these are huge organizations, you're not talking to the right people in the organization, right? So these things don't take off.
Shardul, Satish, Praveen, do you want to comment on last mile delivery? Because I think you are trying different kind of models.
Definitely, we have come a long way. So when we started in 2015 till date, so where we were engaging only with India Post, which can reach out to, and we had a lot of challenges because on-time delivery of the inputs is very critical for the farmers. But I see a lot of investment that is happening in the rural logistics by many new age startups. So we are able to leverage on it. And also, these unit economics, right? Today, probably we are spending a lot of money to ship a product to the farmer. But at a scale, what would happen is basically this will come down. So that's what we could see the trend emerging, with the new age startups.
Yeah.
Also, farmers are also planning. So we have seen a lot of farmers, based on the delivery timelines. So they are also planning their input purchase. So that is a very good, kind of adaptation that we have seen, and the planning exercise we see from the farmers.
See, just to add what Abhijit was saying, I think last mile logistics is a very big concern if you are in a agri-input supply chain. Because when we started in 2016, the biggest challenge was how to transport a 40 kg wheat bag, how to transport a 65 kg livestock bag. So we come up with a technology, where we've done the optimization of the vehicle and the route planning. As you're aware, in the rural areas, it's very difficult to pinpoint the address. So something like Kuएं के पास चौथा घर and all that. So it's very important in the geographical area you are operating. You have to have a some kind of solution on top of whether you call Google Map or any other map, so that the delivery cost can be reduced substantially. So we will be able to reduce the delivery cost almost by 60% by technology intervention. A lot of stakeholders also got benefited out of that solution. So I definitely agree with what Abhijit is saying. And as a marketplace, I think it will be good for us to focus on fulfillment and reaching out to a farmer. Let the supply side managed by the agri-input companies. I think that will give us a more focused approach towards the whole marketplace solution, and which will actually benefit the farmer.
I can add one more point over here. Since the last 3 years, almost all my payments or orders are happening through digital only. The digital payments are increasing, month on month when it comes to the Napanta. But what is the major blockage over here? The delivery days. Suppose if you send from one location to another location, sometimes it's taking 1 week. So that is hurting actually the business. So right now we are trying to come up with a hyper local model where we want to decentralize the process delivery and product delivery. So we are looking forward to that at this moment.
Okay, Naveen, thanks. Ritu, any more questions or?
No, so I mean, I'm just hearing logistics as we can talk about digital, but the physical also has to scale, right? Yeah, so maybe the physical is what's limiting the digital scale here. Because, I forgot, somebody did mention that, we're still just the tip of the iceberg. Yeah. And, why is that? Even though every corporate here believed that, things are going to change. I think there's still some pieces here that are kind of missing. Do people here in the e-commerce space, like if you take an Amazon or a Flipkart, they solve their own logistics problems, right? Through their e-carts and whatever else that they sort of set up, right? Is that how, the e-commerce going in will also have to solve the logistics themselves as opposed to relying on third-party piece here? Or does that not make any sense?
But I think farmer come and stick with one digital platform for all requirements. It is going to be one of the critical part here. When it comes to digital platform like us, onboarding a rural farmer is a very it has its own costing. But onboarded farmer has to be stick with your platform to come up with this kind of own logistic issues. So it may require a huge capital to be pumped into that to build that kind of model.
Ritu, can I say
I totally I agree with you that no, as a e-commerce player, we need to build the separate logistic unit. But the biggest concern comes the demand density. But when Flipkart or Amazon works in a metro areas, they always have a demand density. But in the rural area, you need to be very focused in terms of creating a demand density. Otherwise, unit economics will not work. So then you have to stick to a particular geography area and have a deeper penetration. Then it makes sense to have own logistics and delivery system. So I totally agree as a marketplace that you have to have a separate logistic unit so that you can deliver from 1 kg to 60 kg, because ultimately you are giving the solution to the farmer. Else you are giving a services or product to the farmer, because they want all. You can't say that, okay, I'll give you only the seed of vegetable, or I'll give you the 1 kg packet. As a farmer, it's more about giving solution. That is why I saw in many conversation that everybody's giving a product offering or a replacement of something, but we are not giving a solution to the farmer. Unless and until we don't give a solution to a farmer, the farm economics will not work for them.
Yes, Praveen. So I think we are half an hour above our scheduled time. Any last words from you, Mr. Keswan, or I think Amit wants to say.
Hemant and the people here, see, we have been trying to work with a lot of startups.
Okay.
While we have been looking at the startups, and I know you and me have been the panel members for a lot of startup selections. The biggest issue whenever I took an agri startup is their ability to scale. It has been a serious problem every time we have faced. And one of the reasons the ability to scale is, I want all of you to go back to why the mandi operators were successful. Don't forget, they gave credit, they bought the produce. They completed the cycle. Any good agri startup to really scale up, you need to resolve that problem of the farmer in Indian conditions. I'm not talking about anything else. So unless you have a solution wherein you are able to complete that cycle of the farmer, we will find it extremely difficult to break the mandis, extremely difficult to break the retailers, because logically, if any time they have a problem, they go to the local retailer or local mandis to borrow. So this, unless you have a solution, and most of the startups I am seeing, even in, I think probably we have seen around 200, 250 startups. The startups which actually has succeeded much better, Hemant will agree with me, is the startups which is actually able to pick something, process it and reach the market. There the cycle is much better. But the minute you are dealing with the farmer, unless you find a solution for this, I know that there will be solution for logistics, there will be solution for everything we can do. But how do you tackle this particular solution? I really don't know. So this is where I think our crux of the problem is. And if there is going to be a DBT transaction to the farmer, one thing I think will be a solution is, if every single subsidy today, I think I'm sure the fertilizer people will definitely agree with me. If you can give the subsidy to the farmer and allow everybody to work in the normal business model, then the subsidy will go to the farmer in their banks. That will actually start recreating the ability for them to start doing digital transactions. Unless I think you have major changes here, we will have small victories, but I don't think we won't see a complete changeover or a model which is going to work sustainably and expandably. This is my reading currently.
You're right, Mr. Keswan. I think the challenge of scale, and I think that's where we are trying to do our work at ThinkAg, to bring various ecosystem players together and see if we can find the solutions together rather than working on it individually. So that's our mission too. And of course, we want this ecosystem, this kind of collaboration, what we see today on the call to go further. Are there any final remarks, or are we ready to close? Okay, Ritu, you want to say any closing remarks?
I'd like to just thank everybody. Our apologies. This has spilled over a half hour. I think we're also still trying to work through digital roundtables, so bear with us. We were used to the physical model, we're adapting to the digital stuff. But thanks everybody for your inputs, and would love to see a lot more people working together here to sort of build this ecosystem further here. So thanks again.
Ritu, you are better off, because morning we attended a session with Nirmala Sitharaman. We completed all our discussion. She could not talk, and she said, I'm going to postpone it to another day because the entire system failed.
Oh, okay, all right.
So you are better off.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, so
thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you all the panelists and all the audience also. I think we had a lot of questions on the chat box. I think some of them are answered, some are not, but we'll get back to you. And thanks very much. I think it's been a wonderful session.
Thanks, Hemant.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you
So much.
Take care. Bye.